Hi, and welcome to Changemakers with Eleanor, the podcast where we dive into the lives and lessons of those who are making a difference. I'm your host, Eleanor Baggaley, and in each episode we bring you inspiring stories from leaders, coaches, and people who are not just dreaming of change, but making it happen. Whether they're penning their first book, working in their community, or leading a revolution in their industry, you'll get a first-hand look at how they're shaping the world. If you're looking to leave a mark or simply love a good story about modern-day heroes, you've come to the right place. Here, we're all about changing the world, whether that's one person's world or the world in general. So grab your notebook or just a comfortable seat and let's explore these fascinating journeys together. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts to ensure you never miss an episode. Let's go change the world together. So in this episode today, we have got the lovely Richard Graham Judd with us. So Richard, would you like to tell us a little bit about you and where you're from and a little bit about what you do?
I would love to, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this. I'm Richard, as you can tell. I'm basically 57, recently divorced. As you can probably tell, I'm not a northerner by birth. I was born in South Africa, but moved up to the north just over 10 years ago. Big change for me then, and I was one of the first from my company to work from home 10 years ago. So I was already working from home when COVID hit, etc., and still work from home now. And the advantage of the technology these days is I'm actually down south at the moment at my mum's. So I'm able to work from here and talk to you here in Southampton whilst I'm normally up in the County Durham. Basically, I love the outside. I love walking. I do a bit of jogging. I can't call it running really, it is jogging. And I've basically found my home from home really at Leadgate, which is an old mining village just outside Concert. And it's the community which has really drawn me and also supported me at my bad times over the last 10 years as well. Right from the first evening of walking into the Golden Lion, which is now opposite where I actually live, on the first night. It went a bit quiet first off when I walked in, and I was thinking, oh dear, what have I done?
And that sounds a little bit, I lived in Scotland for a couple of years and there was a pub that was very similar when we went up there and we walked in and everybody just turned and looked and we were like, oh no, maybe we shouldn't go in here.
It is a locals pub. It's one of the few remaining pubs in Leadgate. Leadgate used to have lots of pubs, and I love my history, and that's part of what we'll talk about later. But basically, the landlord brought me the first drink, and then 4 other guys brought me a pint, so I didn't even have to buy a pint that evening. And that really is the difference between the north and the south. So even that first evening in the north is an example of community in its way. They're reaching out to somebody they didn't even know. I could have been anybody.
Yeah.
But and we now have a lot of banter because I go over there to watch the football with them. And there's one Sunderland supporter and one Southampton supporter. Southampton supporters me. The rest of them are Geordies.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. So obviously the podcast is Changemakers with Eleanor. So obviously, like I'd kind of asked if people were interested in jumping on, and you said you were. So tell us a little bit about how you consider yourself to be a change maker.
Hopefully, I love my human beings, basically, and my community. So I try to do my bit rather than just standing idly by. I try to get involved in one way or another. So that's changed over the last 10 years. About 7 years ago, I was working with about 10 other people, actually doing stuff actually in the village, like community gardening. We had a Santa on a tractor at Christmas, handing out gifts to the local children, etc. Then we clashed with the local councillors, who were not Labour at the time, and that got all stopped because of health and safety, etc. at the time. So then I basically went back to doing stuff online at that stage, and COVID again is another example of that. I find I can help people and create change online as much as I can in person. That is slightly changing at the moment. I've set up a men's meetup group once a month in Concert from scratch, and now we've got 5 or 6 people coming to that on a regular basis. All ages, we all sit there and talk about what's going on in our lives, thinking that we're alone in our own four walls. But in actual fact, when you start talking to each other, you find actually you're not alone, and we all have very similar stories to tell and issues to hopefully work out together. And it is an issue. Men talking is an issue. And I'm hoping that is in a small way helping, but there are many other groups in the area, and I do promote people like the Handyman's Club and things like that who are doing great things on a regional and even a national level on that score. So that's just on a men's health side of it. The walking is also another area that I've helped myself and also other people. I started a walking group in Leadgate basically just before COVID. We started to try and do it with the council, but unfortunately the numbers weren't enough to keep it going, so they withdrew their voluntary support of it. But I thought, no, it's such a good thing, and we've got so many lovely places to walk just in the local vicinity that I would try and keep it going. So quite often it would just be me, and then it might be 2 or 3 people. Now that Saturday morning group regularly gets 20 people walking on Saturday in the local area, and it's amazing, all sorts of different ages. And again, it's a social side. We always try and find a cafe to have a bit of a cup of tea and a scone or whatever afterwards.
Who wouldn't want to go for a scone?
So again, that's now got to a stage where that runs itself. I now don't go to as many as I used to, because I used to walk lead most of them, but now there's 4 or 5 people volunteering to walk lead. I walk lead probably once every 6 weeks on that, so that's great. I'm now leading the Wednesday night walks in the spring and the summer, again in the local area. Again, that started off with just a few people. That's now getting a regular, about 12 people coming to that. All sorts of backgrounds. And there's people there that are caring for people, for example, and that's their 1 hour of the week when they can come out and do something for themselves.
Just giving some respite, I guess.
Respite even in that. So whilst I'm not educated or an expert in any of this, it is my way of helping people and supporting people in that way.
And I think ultimately you don't need to be an expert necessarily in anything. I think this is a really key lesson, that actually anyone can go and help other people. And even yourself, as you said, you started walking to kind of help yourself first of all, and then it's kind of helping other people. And I think it is important to focus on that, helping yourself and to improve yourself, be the better version of yourself, whatever it might be, and then you can obviously go on and help others. Can I ask you, in terms of setting up the men's group or the walking group, what was the motivation to be able to go out and do that, to set it up?
A couple of things. First off, my own mental health myself. It is a struggle. And I've been, literally, I woke up one morning 7 years ago and didn't want to be here anymore. And there really isn't the resources around to support us. The NHS, etc., have some, but they are so inundated with people who need to use their services, they can't help everybody. And again, it's just trying to say that I've been there, and I want to show people that you can get through to the other side. And I wouldn't say I'm necessarily totally happy, but I'm much happier than what I was 7 years ago. Lots of things have happened in those 7 years, but it's showing that. And also just to do something instead of thinking about it and not doing anything. I've always been instilled in me, my granddad and my dad always said, you've got to vote. You can't moan about things unless you vote. And lots of people have died, both in world wars, etc., but also women with the suffragettes, etc., to give us the vote. And we might not think it sometimes, but we live in a relatively free society. Not necessarily tolerant, that's another discussion for another day, but we are much freer than some countries around the world. So that ability to actually go and cast your vote in private without anybody really telling you what to vote. Some people will try, of course, but
indeed,
in that sense. So that's always been instilled in me, that if there is something wrong in your community or something needs to be improved in your community, instead of just moaning about it, come up with a solution to it. You might not necessarily have the resources to do it yourself, but together, again, it shows the power of working with others. I can only do so much, but if I can advocate and get people together to help to resolve issues, it's amazing what can be done. And
It's that
even
ripple effect, isn't it? It's like that if you can help someone or even get other people on board, it can have that much bigger ripple effect across more and more people.
and now I help people, both male and female, and they see what I do on Facebook, etc., and they reach out to me. And I'm not qualified in any of it. All I'm qualified in is life, really, and I'm hardly the one really giving them the advice, really.
But lived experience counts for so much. So I think you like just value that lived experience that you've got in what you're able to offer people.
And again, it's just understanding and being there for them, and also
Yeah.
not giving them the solutions there and then. They need to be listened to, or allowed to release their emotions at that point. And they are valid um, emotions to have, even if they're not the right ones. And I've been there, if you know what I mean. 'Cause normally, when you're at that stage, when you're really, really emotional about something, and negative about something, the normal rules of engagement are out the window. So you literally have to just get through that process and start to just slowly distract them back into reality and get them to think about it. Ultimately, we are able, the mind is the most powerful thing. It can be a negative thing, it can be a positive thing. And it's just changing that narrative, even for a few seconds, basically to get them back into the positive. And I look at things now, and it's changed in the last 3 years for me even. I now live in the now. I've found gardening, which I never did before. It forces me to live in the now. You can't force the flower just to grow. You have to tend to it. And it's the same with the mind. It's the same thing. Very simple thing. So
Yeah, I guess you've got to feed it, water it, nurture it, and then it will grow. And
and
yeah,
it's the same with the communities. It's the same. We all have issues. Speeding is quite a classic one that we all have speeding in whichever village or town you live in. They've got the boy races at night, etc., etc. But it's what
we
can we
have
do?
dirt bikes over here, but yes.
Yeah, bikes as well. But together, I couldn't solve that on my own. A councillor couldn't solve that on their own. But together we can.
So because you're quite involved in kind of the local politics within the area as well, aren't you?
Yes. I wouldn't be in a situation where I would want to stand or anything like that. And I do struggle to do the door knocking bit of it. But I will certainly on social media stand up where I think it's right. And if there's somebody who hasn't got a voice, I would be more than happy to stand up for them.
Yeah.
I've got a disabled daughter, for example, and I've seen how just in a wheelchair, just simple things, take her to the supermarket, and they would be talking to me for the payment while it's her shopping. She's got the
Yeah.
money, she's paying for it, and she sat there in the chair next to me, and she wants to. She's not a child; she's 32, but they talk
Yeah.
to me rather than her. Or going around a shop where there's stuff in the way, so the wheelchair can't get round. So she finds accessibility not easy. The local woods is another classic example. It's a lovely asset, but people in prams and wheelchairs struggle to get in there, which is a shame. They're missing out on something that they should be able to justifiably get in there and enjoy and would benefit from. And again, drop curbs is a small thing, but until you actually have to push somebody around in a wheelchair,
Yes.
it is not straight A to B. You have to go halfway down the road to go across the road to get back up to where you want to start, if you know what I mean. Getting into places, again, there have been improvements, but when I lived in Southampton, we went to a very expensive Indian restaurant in Southampton with her, and we were paying sort of £80 a head. Couldn't even get in. They actually had to bring
Oh
a
wow.
tabletop. They had no disabled access at all. So they brought a tabletop for her to get into the restaurant on it. Crazy. A big place.
I guess it's. I was having a similar conversation with another recent guest on the podcast about unless you are in that environment. Actually, I was talking about it with someone else today as well. I feel like I talk about this a lot as well. I have my youngest little girl has Down syndrome. Obviously, we don't have kind of the wheelchair aspect of things to consider, but there's still the accessibility side of things that it's made me look and evaluate different aspects. And I think if people aren't in that, if they're not in that world, then it can be very easy to forget not the basics of what other people need. And I think it's really important. And I always say, like, inclusion shouldn't be an add-on. Accessibility
Correct.
shouldn't be an add-on. You need to think about kind of those inclusion and accessibility from the off, whatever it is that you are doing and you create. Think about, how can I make this accessible for everybody, because then Joe Bloggs walking down the street can still access it and it's not inconveniencing anyone else. We could go on and on about this, Richard, because that is something that I do feel really, really strongly about as well.
Absolutely. So I feel I can't really change big stuff. No, I can't find a cure for cancer. I'm never probably going to be able to raise enough money to do the research to cure cancer, but I can make a difference in my local community. So that's why it's not a label I've ever thought about until you invited me to possibly come onto this podcast. Am I a change maker? And the answer is, why not say yes? Because I am, in a way.
Yeah.
I've never really thought about it in that way.
Yeah, and a lot of people, and I have found that with the podcast, a lot of people have said, I don't see myself as being a change maker. And I had this debate with myself as well when I was trying to think of the name for the podcast. And even now, I probably still kind of cringe a little bit going, am I a change maker? But my big mission in life is to change the world. I want to change the world. And whether that's the world for one person or the world as a whole, why don't we go out there and kind of aim big and try and do what we can to make it a better place. We leave it a better place than it was when we started. And I think if you're making that world a better place, even for your daughter to be able to access, to go shopping and be seen and heard, or whether it's to make a restaurant think, well, actually, other wheelchair users can access that restaurant because you've made them think about it. Whether it is that you have given those men a safe space to share their vulnerabilities and actually make them feel a little bit more positive about themselves and increase their self-worth, you are making those positive changes. You are a change maker for each of those people within their lives. And I think that a lot of people are change makers, but probably do struggle with that. Am I a change maker? Because I'm only doing whatever it might be. And I think like that you have just given us a whole host of different things. And I know when we were talking before, you're like, well, I'm not sure I do much. But actually, you are changing the world for lots of individual people with all the stuff that you are doing.
Thank you for that. And now I think about it, I probably am. I just do what I do. I don't go out my way to. I'm not here for thanks. I'm not looking for glory. I'm not looking for any awards or anything. I'm just doing what I'm doing because I feel that's the right thing to do. And that's why I support things like the bread and butter thing that we've got in Leadgate and now just in Dipton now as well. I think that's a fabulous.
What's that?
Basically, it's a once a week. It's a type of food bank, but it isn't. Basically, you pay £8.50 for 3 bags of food, and anybody can get access. Basically, and it doesn't matter whether you're in work or not in work. And then from that, you can then signpost them to other organisations. Yeah. And even in my local area here, we've got 4 or 5 different places people can get assistance 7 days a week if they need it. Boxing Academy just set up in the Eden, which is the old miners' welfare here, just set up there. And he set up a food bank in there, and that's open 7 days a week. So if someone needs something, they can come to him, and he will open his doors there and provide it. There are other places where you've got to get a voucher and so forth, which we can, again, discuss whether that's the right way to do it or not. But there are, within my local community, there are 6 or 7 places I can signpost people to say, if you need something, just message them and they will, even outside of their normal hours, help you. We've got Foundation for Good, like the Leadgate place, started boxing to help with knife crime, getting youngsters off the street. Then they've got the veterans in there, they've got the homeless in there, then they've offered them assistance to get homes, etc., out of that. They also offer now SEN education for kids that have been excluded from school, so they haven't got anywhere else to go. And the mainstream just isn't helping in that way. And that goes back to when I was a school governor. We were struggling back then, that was about 15 years ago. It was horrendous. There was no
Yeah,
support.
well, as I said when we were chatting before, like I was a teacher as well, so I totally get kind of the education system side of things.
I went into school. My son was failing in his first year of senior school. I went in there and had an hour and a half moan. They gave me the application form for the governor, and I was a governor for the next 9 years thereafter. And it totally changed my whole perspective. The challenges. Then I went in and observed a maths lesson once, and even then, there were 12 different languages in that lesson that the teacher had to contend with. I imagine it's even more now.
Possibly not quite as much in the northeast, but I think.
I don't know. It's growing in our area here. We've got Ukrainians, Polish, etc., etc. It's amazing. Southampton again, with community, has always been a mainstay for them. And I went to the Titanic Museum in Southampton, and I love my Titanic history anyway. So I found the Titanic Museum bit actually not great for somebody who really looked into it. It was good for the kids. There was some good interactive stuff for the kids, but there was a small room at the back, and they'd done this stuff with community artists to go into the local community to look at all the diverse, different organisations: West Indians, Indians, Bangladeshians, Idiomanes, guys coming over from Uganda, etc., etc. And they each had an area for each bit. And it was amazing. That was the bit that hit me more than the Titanic bit. Which is a lot of commercialism there for the tourism rather than for some of you at the time.
Yeah.
But again, I hate to say it, but we're not a tolerant country. I hope I hope we can become a tolerant country.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not everybody. I think some people I guess are much better than others, but
But unfortunately, the narrative on it at the moment is wrong. And that needs to improve. That hasn't changed, but some of the best people in this country and the best organisations in this country have come from people who were not born in the UK, that have either moved here for one reason or another, chosen to move here or had to move here because of various actions at their home place and so forth. Some of the best people are non-UK people. Are we going to just say we can't have those sort of people? I think we do need to change the whole narrative on that completely, but that's probably not a discussion for here.
We're covering everything today.
But basically, I start off in my local community and hope that will feed out. And so politically, that's
it's
how
the ripple
I try.
effect.
Try to do it. The same with the political side of it is common sense, and hopefully that will get the right results at the end of the day. Yes, there have been some sea changes with the local elections now, but I think that's just how it is at the moment. It's a blip. We're in a generational change of things, if you know what I mean. And I think a lot of what will transpire over this Parliament and hopefully another Parliament with the Labour compared to what we had with the Conservatives previously is we've got to give them time to put these things into place. You can't expect it all to happen in 18 months. It's going to take... Some of the things that they're trying to tackle are huge problems.
And I don't want to get into kind of the evils of social media, but there seems to have been quite a big shift in basically social media politics, doesn't there, as well? That there's a lot more people that are voting based on who's shouting loudest on Facebook and people within their own echo chambers. And it is, it's quite interesting. I'll use the word interesting to see kind of how that's kind of played out recently. And I wonder how it will play out kind of moving forward as well.
Yeah, well, I hope on a change level that we can get back to, and I think we need to get back to people thinking about things, thinking things through, debating, and there should be debate. We shouldn't shy away from that. I think the best way of getting to best solutions, and sometimes the opposition may have some nice solutions in it as well. They're not all horrible, and they're not all bad, if you know what I mean. There are some good in there as well. But again, we're in the generation where it's so instant now. News is so instant. Reaction to things is so instant. Look at Southport. But a lot of that was driven, the aftermath of that was driven by social media.
Social media,
Horrendous. You know, Years ago, it couldn't have happened as quick as that. It would have taken days to get that point. Now it's minutes, hours. It can be organised there, and people can hide behind the keyboard, if you know what I mean, and say do absolutely horrendous things. I campaigned against the open cast local to me at the time. I was working. I had a family. My wife came up and demonstrated as well. And we quite often were getting people hanging out the windows saying, go and get yourself a job. So we thought we were rent-a-mob, basically, that we'd been moved in from other places, if you know what I mean. We cared about the local community and the local landscape. That's basically what we were campaigning for. I walk now on the open cast that they're now re-landscaping, and it's wonderful. And they are doing some good stuff on the re-landscaping. I wish it hadn't gone ahead, but I also, again, going back to you can't moan unless you vote, I went up there to peacefully demonstrate and keep that going and allow that.
And give your voice, give your point of view. And I think that's kind of as well, like where the change maker element comes in, that you've got to stand up for things that you believe in, because you cannot make a difference, whether that is voting or whether it is standing up protesting, whatever it might be. You can't make a change if you don't use your voice in your actions, ultimately, can you?
No. If I was quiet and didn't, there's no way. Ultimately, in that instance, we weren't successful. That's fine. But at least we were able to have a peaceful demonstration. Yes, there were some people at the end of it that were not as quite as peaceful. And I'm not necessarily advocating sometimes doing illegal stuff isn't necessarily the right way. It gets the wrong message going across. But again, even then, I was also up there to make sure they were being looked after the best way they could possibly be looked after. Some of the circumstances of people chaining themselves to the roads, etc., meant that some of the ways that they were being, inverted commas, manhandled, both men and women, wasn't great. But how they did it didn't mean that to get them extricated from that wasn't easy. They tried their best to try and do it in the best way possible, but there was some heavy-handedness. And on a couple of occasions, I was speaking to some of the, I would say, the managerial policemen that were there, just observing rather than actually being on the front line of it, and just saying, is that really enough? I think that's a bit too much. You need to be thinking about that.
And again, it's standing up for what you believe is right as well, isn't it? There.
So that one side of it saying, I don't actually advocate illegal demonstrations, but even so, even when they're doing that, they're still human beings. They still need to be.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember the human being side of things in probably in all aspects of everything that we've covered, really, because I think, again, with social media, you can quite often forget that that there are actually human beings at the other end of it as well.
I wish some of the keyboard warriors would remember that, and I've been at the wrong end of that on occasion too. And again, I think that comes down to having the conviction to actually stand up for what you believe in, and stand up for other people, even if that is not necessarily the agreed version of what people want. Do
it with kindness.
Do it with kindness, absolutely. And again, I stand up for people in the LGBT community, etc., who sometimes some of the stuff that gets written when they do a post about something is uncalled for. It really is. Everyone is different, and they should be allowed to be, as long as they're being legal about it, they should be able to carry on regardless. And it shouldn't be your right to undermine that just because you don't agree with it. Well, don't agree with it, don't say anything, if you know what I mean. In that instance, just let it be. They're not doing any harm. The majority of these guys and girls are doing no harm to anybody, but they're just being victimised because they're not the norm. Well, what is the norm these days?
I was going to say whatever that might be.
Whatever that might be. It changes from week to week, if you know what I mean. It depends who is advocating it, you know what I mean. Ultimately, they have as much right to live in safety and enjoy life as anybody.
As anyone else, yeah.
And I think sometimes they need to be stood up for because they're not being allowed to have their voice, which is a shame. It really is a shame.
So with everything we've put like the whole world right, I think in this conversation, with everything that we've talked about, what is your vision for kind of where you want to take your change making? So whether it is your walking groups or your men's groups or the local politics or any other aspect of it, where do you see yourself kind of taking this and kind of making more of a change, more of a difference?
I just want to see my local community a better place for everybody, be inclusive for everybody, that the amenities, etc., are kept or improved or added to, and campaigning for that. Even things like the bus service, for example, coming from the south, people moan about our services up in the north, but compared to the south, they are very, very good.
Oh, right, okay.
We get services in the evenings. In the south, 5 or 6 o'clock, that's it.
Oh, wow. Wow, did not know that.
We're lucky in that sense.
Yeah.
But it's just, I'm very proud to live in Leadgate, in the north. I'm proud to have been born in the south. But I just want everyone to be in as good a place as they can be, living in decent housing they can afford, or if they're renting like me, that it's in decent stock, that they've been, and landlords are doing their thing to make sure they're in good repair, etc. That people aren't getting trapped into, and I think we need to reduce like our contracts and things like that, so everyone gets a decent opportunity to work and get paid a reasonable amount of money, and then they can go and live their lives and do their hobbies and things like that they want to do.
Yeah, no, well, that sounds a perfect idyllic world. So yeah, let's support you in that mission, Richard. Before we tie up for today, can you share a fun fact or an interesting fact about yourself?
Well, not many people will know this, but I collect postcards.
Okay.
And I do this in memory of my late nan, who died of dementia. And unfortunately, she used to send me postcards. She used to go off on the travels and send me postcards. But I've not got any of those postcards left. As many people know, sometimes you when you're younger, you don't necessarily cherish them as much as you do later on in life.
Yeah.
So basically, I've started to collect postcards, and it's been wonderful again on the community sense. People now send me postcards.
Oh,
So I
that's lovely.
started off with none at all, and now my spare room is full of postcards.
Do you have them up on the walls? Are
No,
they on display?
they're in albums, and I do the occasional talk on postcards because the history of postcards is fascinating too. It was the social media of its day back in the Edwardian days, just after.
Yeah, I guess it was.
At that stage, back then, they've calculated it's something like 5 million postcards a year were being sent. And in those
Wow.
days, you could actually send 3 or 4 cards in a day because you got that as much post. So you could actually be writing, I'm going to meet you behind the clock at 7 o'clock. And then you change your mind, I'm going to meet you behind the clock at 3 o'clock. And they would still get the message in time to meet you at 3 o'clock. It was just amazing postage there.
Yeah, that is
And
interesting.
there used to be different, back in those days as well, there was code. People would write different things on code because people could read, the postman could read your card.
Yeah.
Or your parents could read your card. So you write. So there'd be like a lover's code as well. So there we go. So yeah, postcards.
I guess we've gone to that with emojis and things, maybe with
Yeah,
texting.
absolutely. I've probably got the best of both worlds. I'm a social media overuser now, but I also like the old social media of the postcards back in the day too. So that's a fun fact.
Yeah, no, I love it. So if anybody who is listening is thinking, I would really like to start a men's group in my area, or they are in kind of the Leadgate area and they're interested in coming along to you, what's the best way that they can kind of find out about it or get in touch?
So if they're a Facebook user, Richard Graham Judd, that's hence why I put it on here, is my name on Facebook, because there's a lot of Richard Judds on Facebook. So Richard Graham Judd, there aren't so many of us. I don't think there's anybody else in Leadgate that's Richard Graham Judd, so I think you'll be fine. Feel free to look me up on there. And it's just, please do get in touch. If I can help in any way, or if I can point you in the direction of somebody else who can help, whatever that may be, then I'll be delighted with that. And I appreciate the chance to have a chat with you tonight, really.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you and get to know you and your change-making activity a little bit more. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Changemakers with Eleanor. I hope you're leaving as inspired as I am. If today's story has sparked something in you, remember it's never too late to start making a difference. Whether it's writing that book you've always dreamed of, stepping up in your community, or starting that campaign you're passionate about. If you enjoyed our time together, please consider giving us a rating and review on your favourite podcast platform and share this episode with someone who could use a little inspiration. Your support helps us to reach more changemakers just like you. Join me, Eleanor, in the next episode for another deep dive into the stories of those who dare to dream big. Until then, be your greatest. See you next time.